So I put a new motor in my car. It's a hell of a lot more stout than what was in there. Previously I had a stock long block 318 with a mild cam and a dual plane intake, and it was good for what it was, but it was basically worn right out. It only had about 100 pounds compression left in it, and it was just losing power, losing fun. And so what I decided to do is I took a 360 Magnum bottom end and I put aluminum heads intended for an LA 3 or an LA small block in on it, and a single plane intake and a fairly rowdy cam. And I knew I was going to need a whole bunch of different carburation. So I got two that I'm going to try and mess around with and kind of figure out the difference between the two. And sounds like something that might be interesting to you. Stick around. Now this is the gem that's been on there for quite some time. It's Quick Fuel 750 SS, their Street Series. It's a real nice carburetor. You can tell just when you look at all the different stuff. Real high quality. It's got the nice nice glass metering or the bowl windows. That's super nice for setting your float levels compared to the old plugs and whatnot like that. Anyway, this is probably going to be what I use to start with. Now, it was running on the clapped out 318 that was in here before. And yeah, I know everybody blathers on about overcarburation and whatnot, but you know what? It actually ran really well on that clapped out 318. It just did. It worked really well. And I've got a vacuum gauge and an O2 gauge in the car, and I was able to tune it so that it was really nice all around. And I mean, the best I ever got with it for fuel economy on that engine was 20 miles to the gallon at 75 miles an hour for about a 3-hour drive. So, you know, a fella can't really complain about that. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll put it back to exactly stock configuration, just the way it came from Quick Fuel. And, you know, we'll go from there. We'll start there. Now, when it comes to overcarburation, like I said, you can pretty much make anything work on anything. Now, that being said, is it the best way? Yeah, probably not. Like this worked fine on that low power 318, but I screwed around with it quite a bit before I was able to make it work as nice as it did. Now, I mean, I probably could have took a 600 or a 650 and with way less screwing around made it real good on that engine. But this is what I had, and I actually bought it for a different engine. I bought it for an engine that I blew to the moon. So I had it. I figured I might as well use it. I ended up one of the best things that I did, and I honestly I can see that this one might need the same thing. I'm not sure. We'll see when we get at it. But I went to an 8.5 power valve because I did have lots of vacuum on that engine. Now the 8.5 power valve just seemed to make everything smoother than I could ever get it with the stock 6.5. And it's one of them things. It brought the secondaries in, just that, or pardon me, not the secondaries. It brought the power valve enrichment in, just that a little bit quicker. Ooh, that's stuck on there pretty good too. Huh. Wonder what the deal with that is. I have a feeling we might be looking for some new gaskets on this baby. There we go. Yeah, that was stuck on there. Oh yeah. My gasket hanging on there real good. That's okay, I got a bunch of new ones of these. I guess even these blue gaskets don't last forever. This thing's been empty for a while. Everything looks good in there, looks nice and clean. I don't envision there being any problems with it, but I guess when we pull it apart there tomorrow, we'll know right away. Ooh, that good thing I caught that. That little dew flam was starting to fall out there too. Now this thing, I don't know, maybe it was a complete waste of money, but it says Holley, so it must be good. Anyway, all it is just a little jet removal tool, and it centers, and I don't know, I just make sure you don't bugger up your jet. So I mean, whatever, didn't cost me that much money. If it saves messing up a jet or two at an inopportune time, it's probably worth the money. I'll be right back. I just got to figure out what jets I got to put back in this thing, because like I said, I'm just going to start with the setup that it had right from Quick Fuel. So this thing came with 80s in the rear, and came with 74s in the front. So that, I'm going to go back to that. One thing I've learned when it comes to carbs, in my experience, and you may find something different, but carbs are usually fairly close for their intended application right from the factory. And disagree with me if you want, that's fine. But that's the way I see it, and that's the way my experience has been. So I'm going to go back to 80s here. I can't remember if I do or don't, but I'm just going to go back to a 31 squirter here. And same thing in the primaries. There's going to be a 31 squirter and the 74 jets. Now for this this dilapidated gasket, this wrecked bad gasket, I have replacements, and actually never again will I buy anything but good Holley gaskets. I mean, there may be other good ones, but I know these are good, and I'm going to stick with what I know from now on. I was the dummy that bought the cheapest gaskets known to man off of Amazon, and wouldn't you know it, put everything back together, and that little hole right there was not there. So what does that mean? That means you don't have a freaking squirter shot. So after a whole bunch of screwing around and doing things that I thought was going to make everything better in my life, what happens? I got no freaking squirter shot. And that kind of angered me somewhat. So for me, no more cheap gaskets. Thank you very much. Now we're on to the primary side. I swapped in another 31 shooter in the front. I actually had it up to 35s. And the distinct possibility I may have to go back to that. I guess we'll see where we end up overall. But go back to the stock shooters, stock jets, stock everything. And it should be a great starting point. One thing I want to mention, if you're messing around with these Holleys, which I've kind of fallen in love with them, I just enjoy carburetors and how they work, and learning about them and figuring things out. And just when you think you got something figured out, you're wrong. But anyway, This 5/16 nut driver for these, and it's actually magnetic. It's the clear cat's ass. It's a nice Klein Tools brand nut driver made in the USA, and I really like these tools. If you don't have one, think about picking one up because they sure are nice. Here's another, ooh, that's an ugly red gasket. Wonder where that came from. Oh well, we'll replace that one too because it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look too pretty good either, so. Yeah, it's coming off nice. That's okay. Start the season with new gaskets, that'll be just fine. Something that I get nervous about when I'm messing with carbs is torque. Now I suppose there's probably a torque spec and I should look that up, but I probably won't. And I want to make sure stuff's tight, but I sure as heck don't want to strip anything out because that's a real nice billet metering bowl on there, and it would sure be a shame to F that thing up just because the guy's getting rammy, and I have a tendency towards rammy, so. Now this one I do have to take the metering block off because, like I mentioned before, that's an 8.5 power valve, and original edge was a 6.5, so I'm going to go back to that. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Ooh. Yeah, when things go good, they go so good, but when they don't, I just hate it. And yes, I know I'm using a freaking gargantuan screwdriver here, which I shouldn't be doing. Let's see if I can find something a little bit more dainty. If anybody's got a trick to getting these apart without looking like a Neanderthal like I'm doing, put it in the comments. I would love to hear about it, or if you can share with me a video that shows me how to do it, because yeah, I'll get it. I always do. But man, that is stuck. I don't know if I've ever seen one that stuck before. But we got it. We got her. And let's hope and pray we didn't screw up the gasket surfaces, because no. It'll look like shit like everything else I own, but it'll be fine. It'll seal good, so that's the main thing. Okay. And in here, there's my 8.5 power valve. One-inch flat wrench gets that out of there. I have a feeling, because I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling I'm going to end up going back to this 8.5 power valve. But I guess we'll see. See what happens. To be careful, because I know I got a 4.5 in here too. Here we go, 6.5. The O-ring looks really good, so I'll just screw this one in, and this one doesn't have to be quite as tight because it's up against that O-ring, so that makes me feel a little better. Now let's grab a new gasket for that one too. I might save this gasket in case of emergency because just because I'm cheap, but we'll throw a new gasket on there anyway because I got it, so why not? Again, these are real good Holley gaskets, and they're gonna do the job for me without a doubt. Now some 74 jets for the front here, and we'll blend this sucker back together. One nice thing, I'm a Facebook marketplace aholic, like I know a lot of folks are, but I happen to find this Holley jet kit for just cheap like beet soup, but it sure is nice when you're screwing around with all this stuff. You know, you wanna try something, so you run down to the local speed shop to grab a couple jets so you can make a change, and then that does or doesn't work, so that you run back down there a couple days later to get some more. This one, it's got everything from like 64 to 99, and it's got 2 of each, and then plus any of the ones that I'd bought. So I've got extras of several of them. But anyway, they're kind of expensive, I guess, when you buy them new, but if you can just keep your eyes peeled and pick them up secondhand, it sure makes it a lot easier to own a bunch of this stuff. And owning a bunch of this stuff makes working on this stuff a whole hell of a lot nicer. Bring these up nice and even. That's what I do, is I'll just bring them up just to touch, and then just tighten them up in a crisscross pattern until I dare not tighten them anymore. One thing I just did, and I always remind myself not to do, I didn't do it on the other side, but remember when you're throwing this fuel bowl back on, make sure you put your arm for your accelerator pump back under where it's supposed to go. Otherwise, that's a real pain in the ass to do later. Now, even though I forgot it the first time, second time's a charm. That's one of them things I remember about 50% of the time. So maybe that makes me a dummy, maybe not. I don't know. I still love screwing around with carburetors. Okay, power valve, jets, squirters. I never touched the cams or anything like that, or any of the air bleeds, so we should be splendid as far as I can tell. And this is my other little thing that I'm going to play with this summer. It's just your garden variety old 3310 750 vacuum secondary Holley. It's got a manual choke. I'll probably, I don't know, either just it's wired right open. I'll either just leave it like this, or if I like it and I decide I'm going to run it a lot, I'll probably end up just buying an electric choke kit for it, because I really like an electric choke. I think they're nice. I think they're handy. But this one doesn't have all the doodads and nice stuff like the down leg boosters and all that BS. This is just your standard run-of-the-mill, nothing fancy Holley carb. And I'm actually really looking forward to this, just kind of to do a comparison, sort of a back-to-back. I'll get the double pumper set up as good as I can. Then I'll get this one set up as good as I can. And I'll actually, what I want to do is I want to do a back-to-back on the drag strip, just for fun and shits and giggles. And I don't know. I never gave the vacuum secondaries much of a chance because the first one that I got, it was a 670 Holley Street Avenger, and it was okay, but it was never that great. And then I got this 750 and I was like, oh my god, this is huge, this is amazing, this is awesome. But I want to revisit this and I want to just learn. I'm sure these are probably better in some instances, like probably cruising and maybe even highway, they're probably better. So who knows? Since I've got the two of them, and I got this one cheap like beet soup too. This might be my street highway carburetor. The other one might be the one that I dump on to go to the racetrack carburetor. Who knows? Anyway, it's gonna be fun. I bought a box of miscellaneous Holley crap, and it came with a couple of these quick change things for the secondary spring. So I put that on there, and other than that, I'll make sure this thing too. I'll make sure it's got the jets it came from the factory with. Everything will be just as it was when it came out of the box new, and we'll go from there. We'll just start tuning and tweaking and see what we can do to make it as good as we can make it by a guy that doesn't know a whole lot about what he's doing, but he's learning and having fun. So that's it for now. Give you a little update on my carburetor dreams and ideas. And I'm really looking forward to this. I messed around with that 750 lots to make it work on that 318, which I know it wasn't right. It wasn't the right carb for the application, but it worked, and I did it and had a lot of fun. Now my car, I have the AFR gauge and the vacuum gauge, and it's really neat to look and watch and see the correlation between the two, and vacuum versus rich lean versus power versus sputter. I really enjoy that whole aspect excuse me, of tuning, and I'm looking forward to doing it all over again. So if that sounds like something that you might get a kick out of, or might maybe learn something from, think about subscribing to the channel. It's free. So give me a like, give me a subscription, and hopefully we'll see you around soon when we go ahead and get this thing all perfected and tuned up. Have a good night.